positive. And so talk to me about how you have been able to use that experience that you just described and how you how you have turned it into something positive.
Absolutely, Chris. I always say this: what I was made me who I am today, and I always will continue to grow into the person the higher power intended for me to be. Your life experiences, good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's like a play dough. It's like a ball of clay, you know. And you're starting to roll this ball of clay, and then all of a sudden a piece falls off. You go through this time, and another piece falls off. But you got to get those pieces, put it back into that mold, into that ball, and just keep rolling with it. And pretty soon that ball is going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger. So once I got comfortable that I know I would never ever use drugs again in my life, now I can take the positosis, the positive energy, and focus on what I need to do today. I worked at a car wash as a customer service associate, a sales rep, and I did that for 5.5 years and did pretty good. The hard part would be when you see people come in that you knew from high school or friends today, and they see you at a car wash. They would look at you like, "What are you doing here at the car wash?" But they're not knowing. They just see a car wash and they look at it as a menial job,
Mm-hmm.
But they're not knowing that I'm actually doing pretty well at the occupation that I had at the car wash. So I would look at people's faces, and you can look at them like, "Is that Michael Taylor working at the car wash? Wow, did he go to Amphi and play basketball at Pima College, and he was working out at Hughes Aircraft and worked at UPS. What happened?"
Mm-hmm.
I find it funny, how people are so judgmental. They don't know, So a lot of these people, I would tell them, "Okay, I see you got this little smirk and you're feeling like you're better than me moment right here. Won't you go get your paycheck and I'll bring my paycheck and, we'll see, who's doing better,
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, it's like they look at me and like, "Wow, I never knew that you can make this type of money at a car wash." Well, let this be a lesson, not always judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
But moving on to how I use the fuel. I use the fuel to get into what I love. Get into something that I know that it won't be able. Let me back up. The deal at the car wash ended because the owner sold the car wash. So I was left unemployed. And from that point, I said, I need to find an occupation or career or something that this won't happen to me again. I remember as a kid, I used to always want to be a truck driver. But I never really pursued it or put a passion into it. It kind of died and flamed out. But at the time, I went to talk to some counselor, and they told me that this would be a good occupation right here because truck drivers are in high demand. Once you attain a commercial driver's license, CDL license, you'll always will have a job, always. So I went to trucking school for 4 weeks, and I've been a professional truck driver ever since. Did the over the road where I did all 48 states here in the United States, and did that for 2 years, 2.5 years, and then I did some produce out of Nogales, but mainly was going to LA, back and forth from Nogales to LA. And now the company that I'm with now, we do the Western 11 states, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. No, and New Mexico was part of it. We don't hardly go there in Colorado. So I'm on the West Coast, and I'm loving it. I'm loving life. So I focused all my energy into obtaining a career in the trucking industry.
Michael, that's a great story, brother. I love it. And as you were saying that, it was making me reflect on this. Like every little step along the journey, on your journey, on my journey, on the Positosis Players journey, like every step along the way is a necessary step. So maybe when you're working at the car wash, maybe there might be certain people that were looking at you a little sideways or whatever, but like That's just part of the process. That's part of the building process. You had to do that to get to be the trucker, and the trucker is the stepping stone to get to whatever is the next thing, whatever your next thing is. And so I just want to encourage the Positos players out there that, like, whatever, if you find yourself at the car wash, hey, it's exactly where you're supposed to be, and to and to thrive. And Michael T, I remember back when we were growing up, I would come down to your center down at Santa Rosa. And, there was some gyms maybe that might have been constructed a little bit nicer, maybe a little bit fancier, man. But what I remember about Santa Rosa, though, was that the ball players were hard. Like, they were just balling. It might not have been the most fancy gym, but man, it sure did have a lot of energy in there. It had a lot, like, when you came to Santa Rosa, you had to bring your game. And I just remember that was such a big lesson for me. Talk to me about your Santa Rosa days.
Man, growing up in the projects, man, loved it. It was the best of times. It is also cursed at the same time. The best of times was, you're young, you don't have no bills, you don't have no worries, you're just free. You got all your homeboys there, you just play, see each other, have fun. The hoop scene. I recall being a youngster and going up. The rec center was open Monday through Saturday, but Saturday mornings it opened up at 10 a.m. And that was the day all the people that were players in the town, that's where they would congregate. This was before the YMCA. This was before Bear Down Gym, McHale Center, all these other parks or whatever. Santa Rosa was the mecca of Tucson basketball back in this time. And I'm going back to the mid-'70s, early 80s, things like this, where I remember being a youngster and getting to the gym and would see ball players from the U of A when Fred Snowden was the coach. And I'm talking, I mean, Herman Harris, Len Gordy, Phil Taylor, Jim Rappis. I remember seeing Jim Rappis in the gym, and I'm like, how do these guys know about this gym and the project? And it was just like, but it was awesome because you had those cats the cats that around Tucson that were just hoopers on the street level scene, they would want to show they butt to these U of A ball players that they belong or that they're on the same level. They just didn't get the break. They just didn't get the opportunity. So as a youngster, I remember sitting on that wood bench and I would just watch. And man, the games were fierce. I mean, it was just like, man, it was like it was like I'm sitting at the Staples Center in front row seat watching Kobe go against Michael. It's just like it was that type of feeling, that type of atmosphere. So then when the OGs, when they were done playing, now we got to play, because it was their court. We weren't going to interfere with that. So then we get to play. So now we get to emulate the games that we just witnessed, and we go out there and try to, practice their moves and what they did. And man, it just brought the best out, and it ignited that fire in me that I knew that's what I wanted to do, was be a ball player and play ball. And that was my dream. And it was all of our dreams, you know what I mean? So, but, unfortunately, when you get to a certain level, you know what I mean? If you're not extraordinary, for that next level, man, that's when it usually ends, whether it's the JUCO level, whether it's the NAIA level or the Division 3, 2, 1, for a lot of us, that's where it ended, you know what I mean? Because we weren't blessed to be 6'6", 6'8", with a 42-inch vertical and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Yes, there's other opportunities to go play overseas and do here. I'm at the point now where the reality hit me and I'm like, it's time to work. Yeah. But Santa Rosa will always be dear to my heart. I'm never ashamed of where I'm from. It's what made me. And it's kind of where the next chapter of my life is, where I want to focus on giving back. And I would like to speak on that that's at-risk youth.
Michael T, man, first of all, that once again, yeah, long live Santa Rosa. I remember those days, and hey, you'll laugh about this, but remember the court, Michael? Like the wall was real close to the edge of the court. You better stop on a dime, brother, otherwise you run into that wall at the end.
You know what? To this day, I would love who's the engineer and architect and the designer of that gym, man, because what Chris is saying, and for you guys to understand basketball, the out of bounds line. With I would say no more than 2 feet was a brick wall, and the funny thing, the bricks weren't even smooth, man. They were like this stucco type sticky rocks. So like, man, I'm telling you, man, when you hit that wall, you felt it. I mean, you had cuts, nicks, bruises, hurt. I mean, I've seen people get knocked out, man. Like they had one padding. They had one padding right under the basket. On each basket, there was a padding right under the basket. Everywhere else, oh man, free game. So yeah, it was dangerous, man. Yeah, you couldn't be no wimp playing there.
Hey, Michael T, man, this has been awesome. Hey, thank you for hanging out with the Positos players. And you know what? Man, Michael T, like you have so many good stories. You got so much to offer to the world that you have offered that you're giving to the world. But what I want to know is, like, what are you looking to create next? What's your next move? Your next goal? What do you want to create? What are you manifesting at the moment?
Well, I think the best thing that you can do in life is to give back. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of time. You just need a passion for something that you really endear about. And for me, that would be the youth that grew up similar to where I grew up. Growing up in the projects, most of us, I would say 98% of us in the projects, grew up in a single-parent home. We didn't have fathers. That's the reason the mother was in the project, because she was left holding the bag, us kids, and she had to make the best of what she could, and it was a hard situation. So she had to get on public assistance, public housing, food stamps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Growing up in that environment, you never saw someone get up in the morning and go to work, and that to me that's just mind-boggling. Just think about that. You're in a vicinity of where there's maybe, I want to say, 400 to 600 units of apartments, housing, and you hardly ever see someone get up to go to work. Like, we didn't have the positive role models to look at. Like, to see somebody, we didn't have a male figure to see get up in the morning, hop in his vehicle and go to work, whatever he did, whether he was a construction worker, whether he worked at a convenience store, whether he worked at a restaurant. We didn't have that sight. What we saw was the neighborhood hustler, the neighborhood drug dealer, whatever it took for them to get money, but they were doing it all the wrong way. But we didn't know that. All we saw was the glitter. And that's what attracts you, is the glitter. But that is the web that you're about to get entangled with, because that glitter is what brings you to that web. And then once you get caught in that web, now you're caught up with what comes with that lifestyle, which is usually jail and unfortunately sometimes death. So being able to go back and talk to the youth, whether it be through the Pima County Juvenile Court System, whether it's through the Superior Court System, any outlet, any organization that may be dealing with at-risk youth, I would love to be able to go back and share my story, because I believe kids relate to people who's been there, done that. You can bring a collegiate scholar, talk to them till they're blue in the face, and the way that we're going to look at that collegiate scholar is, you don't know my plight. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what we're going through. You live up there in your fancy house in the fancy hills and whatever. You can't relate to us. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about what we go through. even though this collegiate scholar